Well, good morning. This is Gene Love, Chairman of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. This meeting is being conducted pursuant to the notice provisions of the Oklahoma Open Meeting Act, with all participating authority members attending in person. This meeting is also being live streamed and recorded for remote viewing. While this meeting is open in public, there's no public comment scheduled for this meeting. The time is 10:30, and I'm calling the April 4th, 2023 regular meeting of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority to order. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. John Jones.
Here.
Ms. Dana Weber.
Here.
Mr. Will Berry.
Here.
Mr. Todd Cone.
Here.
Mr. John Tedsworth. Mr. Gene Love.
Here.
We have a quorum.
The next item on the agenda is some procedural changes for the authority meeting, and I'll call on Secretary Gatz.
Mr. Chairman, board members, the authority meeting, we're going to go through a little bit of a procedural change to better serve the citizens of Oklahoma and promote greater transparency in the transaction of OTA business, commencing with the April 4th, 2023, today's regular meeting of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. There will not be separately scheduled or conducted meetings of the OTA Finance Committee or the OTA Engineering and Construction Committee prior to OTA's regular meeting, so the public can better witness the discussion and interaction between the board and OTA staff on items presented to the board for review and possible approval. The OTA staff and consultant presentations and reports will be moved to and become a part of the regular meeting. All of the important board member questions and discussion related to such matters which previously occurred during the committee meetings will now take place during the regular meetings. These committee meetings, where items were discussed and detailed with staff or consultants, but no actual decisions were made, were always open to the public. This procedural change will make them more easily available and accessible. Mr. Chairman and board members, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have related to the procedural change. But again, I think what we're really motivated by is to raise our standard of communication. So, but I will stand for questions.
I would just make a comment. We went to the way we conducted our meetings over the last a little over 12 years. We went to that back years ago when Kel Kelly was the chairman. And Kel had served on the committee before, and when he served previously, they did their meetings just like you're talking about and just like we're going to proceed with today. He felt like that was a little bit cumbersome, and he wanted to streamline the regular meeting. And in order to do that, have the subcommittee meetings where you did all the discussion and questions and that sort of thing in the subcommittee meetings. And I think that worked well over the years. I really felt like we were being transparent, but there's been some perception that we haven't been transparent enough with the public, and I think this is a way to do that. I mean, to open up the transparency, make sure that, a lot of people, I guess, didn't listen to what we did in the committee meetings, even though we did that, and it was open to the public. But I think going to this procedure just make sure that we're as transparent as we possibly can be. So I think it's a good change.
I would just add that I remember at the last meeting we had some technology issues related to the committee meeting, so I can see where this would also be beneficial. But I'm also curious, was this initiated or was this somewhat come to this conclusion as a result of the comments that were made publicly recently?
I would tell you that I absolutely believe that we sped our change up, our procedural change. And to Chairman Love's point, I think it's important for us to recognize and not lose sight of what we've been through with our meetings over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. And the challenges that were presented in the COVID environment that we had to operate in for a while. And, that included immediately going to a virtual meeting format, which was a significant change. And again, that wasn't easy to get our technological arms around. And I think as we learned from that, what we learned is that the ability to stream our meetings to increase and enhance the public's ability to listen in was important, and we wanted to retain that. We learned a lot of lessons coming from COVID, and that was something we felt strongly about, that really enhanced our ability to reach the public. And we certainly don't want to go backwards, but we want to be sure that we do that properly where the public can have the maximum opportunity to participate. So I think what we've heard discussed over the last few months, and certainly of late, accelerated that procedural change at a minimum, and I think this puts us in a good position. I think everyone will like this format much better because there is so much good dialogue that takes place in those subcommittee meetings that I'm afraid is sometimes missed. And so, like I said, I'm looking forward to the change and certainly appreciate the support of the board on what we're doing.
Well, I appreciate Gene's history lesson, because I didn't know that. And the other thing I'd say is I think that, like everything we do, everything's always subject to question if we can find a better way to do it, and this is just one example of that.
Yeah, and again, it's really seeking to raise our standard of communication more than anything else.
And we're continuing to do so with another microphone. Well, my other comment too is, and Gene brought it up and you did too, just to reiterate that, even though this format change is happening, we were extremely diligent in those meetings about asking the pertinent questions, I think, as a board, and making sure that we understood, what each item was and what we're voting on. And that doesn't change. It just becomes a little more open and transparent due to the realm that we're in now.
Yeah, and again, we're not making procedural change in response to deficiencies.
Right.
We're making procedural change to try to heighten the opportunities for the public to be able to really understand what the Turnpike Authority is about and what we're doing. So.
I think it's good.
Okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask one question? Mr. Secretary, when you started, that microphone was not on to the folks on the internet that are paying attention via Zoom. Would it be possible for you to reread, if that's appropriate? I'm sorry.
Certainly. The authority meeting procedural change to better serve the citizens of Oklahoma and promote greater transparency in the transaction of OTA business, commencing with the April 4th, 2023 regular meeting of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, which is today. There will not be separately scheduled or conducted meetings of the OTA Finance Committee or the OTA Engineering and Construction Committee prior to OTA's regular meeting, so the public can better witness the discussion and interaction between the board and OTA staff on items presented to the board for review and possible approval. The OTA staff and consultant presentations and reports will be moved to and become a part of the regular meeting. All of the important board member questions and discussions related to such matters, which previously occurred during the committee meetings, will now take place during the regular meetings. These committee meetings, where items were discussed and debated with staff or consultants, but no actual decisions made, were always open to the public. This procedural change will make them more easily available and accessible.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is recognitions and other awards, and the first one is our Excellence in Financial Reporting Award, and I'd call on Julie Porter.
Good morning, Chairman Love, members of the authority. As you know, every year the OTA has an annual financial statement audit. Forbes is our independent external auditor, and they have concluded their audit as of last year. And they met with our members of our audit committee and conducted their required communications to those charged with governance. We did all of that work last week, got it all finished up. Their opinions were received, and we will be including those in our annual comprehensive financial report, which we call the ACFR. So because that is such a mouthful, I'm just going to call it the ACFR. So our ACFR will be published at the end of April. We will distribute it electronically and both in hard copy for distribution in accordance with our trust required deadlines. Every year after we finish the ACFR, we submit the ACFR to the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, or GFOA. We like a lot of acronyms in governmental accounting. We will submit that to GFOA for review in their Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting program. On March 21st, we received notification that the report that we submitted for December 31, 2021 was given the Certificate of Achievement in Financial Reporting. So this is the highest honor that you can receive for governmental and financial reporting. This is our 32nd year to receive this prestigious award. And this is our 32nd consecutive year, I should add. So every year when we finish the ACFR, we send it in for GFOA to review. And they stated in their press release that the report was judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, including demonstration of a constructive spirit of full disclosure. That's very important to my staff, to the OTA. We like to make sure that we are fulfilling our required responsibilities both at a high standard of reportability, completeness, accuracy, and transparency. The publication of the ACFR would not be possible without the diligent and dedicated efforts of my leadership team who help me assemble this every year. They work tirelessly through the first quarter of the year to make sure that we get all of the financial information wrapped up, that we are present for the auditors to do their financial statement audit. They spend a lot of energy, sacrifice a lot of personal time to make sure that this gets done for the benefit of the OTA. Today, I would like to tell you I am so appreciative of these ladies, and we are going to recognize them by accepting this Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. I'd like to ask my Assistant Comptrollers, Bridget Patterson and Micah Gardner, and our General Ledger Manager, Mitzi Doster, to join us up here to receive this award.
Julie, on behalf of the board, I just want to thank you and your team for what you do. I mean, to receive this prestigious award for 32 years is absolutely incredible, and we very, very much appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And we're also not surprised because we read
No.
those reports and we know that they're really high quality.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your edits this morning, Ms. Weber. All right. Thank you all.
The next thing on the agenda is our work zone safety proclamation. Secretary Gadsden.
Mr. Chairman, board members, and just to add to the congratulations for Julie and her team, we're super proud of our financial reporting. And that level of achievement doesn't happen by accident, and it's a reflection of a process that really begins with our budget team and the effort that we put into trying to anticipate what our needs are going to be across the course of the next coming year. You've always heard me say that our budget process is what we think we're going to accomplish, and then the annual comprehensive financial report really is the true-up with what we did accomplish. And it takes everybody working together. Julie and her team just do an excellent job of making sure that we're doing everything the right way. And I have a great appreciation for what they accomplish. And, again, they work very closely with the Forvis team and provide them the information that they need to complete. And 32 consecutive years, folks, that is, again, something that is a high honor and something we haven't appropriately recognized in the past. And that's going to change because, again, I expect we will continue to have that stellar performance. So, talk a little bit about work zone awareness. In every April, we recognize work zone awareness. It's a practice that the Turnpike Authority and certainly the Department of Transportation work on every day of the year. So it's not just in April, it's something we take serious year-round. But April gives us the opportunity to put an exclamation point on it and really remind the public how critical it is that they be attentive as they travel through work zones. Part of that process is the governor provides us with a proclamation, and Mr. Chairman, I'd like to read that proclamation. Work Zone Awareness 2023, Make It Home Safe, Make Oklahoma Safe, and this is the governor's proclamation. Whereas the state of Oklahoma is dedicated to providing a strong transportation infrastructure system for travel and commerce on both local and national levels, and whereas the construction and maintenance of Oklahoma highways, interstates, and turnpikes must often be done while roads are still under traffic, where both motorists and highway workers must share the road. Whereas a work zone can be unexpected and temporary during emergency repairs or crashes, placing crews and first responders in direct contact with traffic. And whereas in its history, 72 Oklahoma Department of Transportation and Oklahoma Turnpike Authority employees have been killed in the line of duty, more than any other state agencies except for the military. And whereas in 2022, 5 people were killed and 81 were injured in more than 273 collisions in Oklahoma work zones through May of 2022. And many of these fatalities and injuries were caused by inattentive driving, following too closely, and speeding in construction zones. Whereas in the past 5 years, 91 people were killed and 1,294 people were injured in more than 7,125 collisions in highway or turnpike work zones. And whereas by state law, the fines for speeding in work zones are doubled and texting while driving is banned, drivers are asked to remain vigilant behind the wheel and buckle up, as 50% of crashes potentially would have been less severe for drivers wearing a seatbelt. Whereas ODOT and OTA are highlighting work zone awareness during the month-long public safety initiative with the theme of Make It Home Safe, Make Oklahoma Safe. Now therefore, I, Kevin J. Stitt, Governor of the State of Oklahoma, as part of the National Work Zone Awareness Observation, do hereby proclaim April 17th through the 21st of 2023 as Oklahoma Work Zone Awareness Week in the state of Oklahoma. I think what you hear exemplified in the proclamation is how dangerous work zones can be, and how our hope and our expectation of the traveling public is that they pay attention to everything they do out on the highways and turnpikes, but especially when they're in work zones. Observe the posted speed limit. That's so important. Put away distractions and pay attention to what's in front of you. And I can't emphasize enough how important seatbelt usage is. And certainly the board's heard me talk about that before. If we want to see our fatality numbers greatly impacted, we need to raise our seatbelt usage, because nobody ever leaves home in the morning intended to be involved in a crash, but it happens every day, and they're far more dangerous if you're not restrained in your seatbelt. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the board's indulgence in the wearing of the safety vests. We've got some folks from the Turnpike crews that are out in harm's way every day taking care of business on the Turnpike network. And at this time, I'd like to ask them to come forward for a photo op. And again, if the board would stand at the horseshoe and participate in that photo op. Mr. Chairman, Mark and his team do exceptional work out there. We want them to make it home every day safe to their families. And again, that holds true for our folks and our employees. It holds true for the private sector partners that we have, whether that's engineering companies that are out there helping us on the Turnpike network every day, or the construction contractors that are such a big part of helping us get things done. And again, the danger that's presented by work zones for our employees, and far more often, the traveling public is real, and we really want to call emphasis to it this month. So I appreciate the board's indulgence here this morning. So,
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate that. And Mark, thank you and all your team for what you do every day. We're very, very much appreciative. And, we talk about safety all the time, not only work zone safety, but wearing seat belts. If you look at the statistics, the Oklahoma Turnpike system is the safest in the country if you look at the number of deaths per million miles driven. But, we can always make it better. And some of the ways we do that is concentrating on work zone safety, the cable barriers. I mean, we've made a big effort over the last 5 or 6 years to put cable barriers on our entire system. We're about to complete that. I think, Joe, it'll be completed by the end of next year. Is that correct? And there's no question that those cable barriers save lives. The Turnpike, our troopers on the Turnpike count the number of strikes on the cable barriers. We've seen, I think, as many as somewhere between 30 and 40 in a month. And that's pretty crazy, but each time one of those is struck could have saved a life. So you can't quantify that, but we do know intuitively that by putting the cable barriers in, we're saving lives on our system. So I think it's very, very important. The next item on the agenda is approval of our minutes for our regular meeting that was conducted on March the 7th, 2023. And you all got a copy of the minutes in your packet. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Titsworth? Mr. Love?
Yes. The next items on the agenda are from the finance, are finance items. They're items 1050 through 1053. And I'd call on Mr. Cohn to call on the various staff members to present those items.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item is 1050, Ms. Wendy Smith.
Thank you. Chairman, members of the authority, Secretary Gatz. As the authority's previous budget software has become inadequate and outdated, staff had been working with Guidehouse to help review our budget processes, as well as to help us look at various budgeting software solutions. The Office of Management and Enterprise Services had recently selected Oracle Enterprise Performance Management Software as its budget solution. And because the Oracle's Enterprise Performance Management Software is appropriated by the state, there are no software costs to the authority, which includes the initial purchase of the software components and licenses, along with the ongoing maintenance and renewals for each year. So we're excited about that. But what you'll see in this item is we would like to work with Innofin for a statement of work for the implementation of the software as solution architect, planning lead, and planning developer. One thing that I wanted to point out in this piece of the contract, there's three pieces of the 200. It was brought to my attention yesterday that there was a piece that was in there that they will not be doing. So Joni Seymour, our innovation chief, has been a tremendous amount of help for getting us this far. We're really excited about the software, and so she's going to go back and talk to them and pull that piece out. It had to do with revenue projections. If you guys noticed that, I inadvertently did not notice that. That needs to come out, so that should bring the contract down below the $230,200. We already have CDM do that, so, and legally have to. So also, the data integration to and from Epicor Platinum and from Workday will be done through this. In addition, the second piece of the contract will be Guidehouse's involvement. They're going to help us with the requirements, definition, and design, the periodic review of developed software, training, testing, and they'll be good for callback support after the delivery of the software. Also, OMAS is also sort of a go-between, and they are going to invoice time only as they kind of work between Innofin and us, and that'll be about $11K. So the not to exceed of those three pieces is $355,000, $396,000. And again, thanks, Joni. I feel really good about this software, other than, like I said, I have to pull that one piece out. I'll take any questions.
Just a comment, you and I talked about this yesterday, and in going through that, I saw how extensive it was, so I was a little bit concerned about it.
Yes.
Wanted to make sure that.
I'm glad you saw that.
That you felt that it was.
Yes.
That it was a good thing for the
Yes.
authority, and also the revenue projections. We
Right.
talked about that, so I'm pretty comfortable with it, so
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions or comments?
I would just comment that we've done a number of software implementations, and this is a pretty good, this is an exceptional deal.
It is, and I'm very excited. The last budget software we had drove my person crazy, and so she went and worked somewhere else. Just kidding. But she did get me through the last budget. So I've got Dania Bridges this year, and we're really excited to work together on this new software. So
And Ms. Smith, this may be stating the obvious, but your staff, you've reviewed this, and you
Yep.
recommend that we approve this
yes,
this item as
I should have
presented?
said that. I recommend approval.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of item 1055 for the sum of $355,396.
Okay, we have a motion for approval of item 1050. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is 1051, and I would call on Mr. Marcus Williams.
Good morning, members of the authority, Secretary Gatz, Deputy Director E. Kelly. I have item 1051, consider, take action, and vote for the approval or disapproval of a request to increase the not-to-exceed amount previously authorized for the Oklahoma Direct contract to order to complete the fulfillment of an additional 35,000 Pike Passes customer transponder orders in addition to the amount not to exceed 60,000. What this is we are doing an excellent job of taking plate pay customers and turning them into Pike Pass customers. And we've done so well that our projection for last year has been exceeded. So this is where we're asking for additional funds for the fulfillment of those transponders to go out to the community.
Do we have a percentage of customers that are switching from plate pay to Pike Pass? Do we have a percentage of the ones we contact that are doing that?
Right
Or
now, we're
the ones that
about-
are getting plate pay. What percentage of those are?
We're in the mid-50s, so 54, 55%.
That's really good. Yeah.
Sounds like this is a great problem to have.
Oh, it is, most definitely.
I would
And-
just like to comment, Marcus, we don't very often get an opportunity to say this, but, like it said in your report, your approval ratings and all the surveys of everybody that your team contacts is always just as close to perfect as it can possibly be, and your team just does an outstanding job. So since you're at the podium, I want to take the opportunity to thank you for what an outstanding job your team does.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I do have members of my team here, so they like to hear that as well, so thank you, we
Well,
appreciate
I'll
that.
echo that, because some of the best comments that I've ever gotten since I've been on the authority is from the call centers.
All right.
And, yeah, absolutely. I mean, when people call in, I've gotten just great comments about the response that they've gotten and the information they've gotten, so. really
Mr.
good.
Love, I need you around when our deputy does my PMP. Thank you, but we have reviewed it, and we ask that you consider approval.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? If there's none, Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of 1051 as presented.
Okay, we have an approval for item number 1051. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Coe?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is item 1052, and Mary Biswell.
Good morning,
Morning.
Good morning.
Chairman, members of the authority. In addition to normal preventative, predictive, and corrective maintenance, related services for the full and complete maintenance of the OTA's electronic toll collection system, the TransCore Toll System Maintenance Agreement, as amended January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2027, provides that TransCore shall, as directed by the authority, perform additional services in connection with miscellaneous tasks and special projects that support work related to modification, growth, expansion, and enhancements to the system and toll technologies owned and operated by the authority. The authority has previously authorized the director to negotiate and execute miscellaneous task orders and special projects pursuant to Agenda Item 967 on July 26th of 2022, Agenda Item 847 on October 26th of 2021, Agenda Item 640 on December 4th of 2019, and Agenda Item 363 on October 24th of 2017. In further support of the continued modification, growth, expansion, and enhancement to the system and toll technologies owned and operated by the authority, submitted for consideration and approval of the authority is an item to authorize the director to negotiate and execute additional or amended miscellaneous task orders and special projects. These are governed by the TransCore Electronic Toll System Maintenance Agreement in an aggregate amount not to exceed $13,995,877. This amount includes items that were previously budgeted through our capital budget, and most of it is for the installation, integration, and testing of the remaining turnpikes for the cashless conversions. If you'll remember, we brought to the authority in July of last year for the pre-ordering the equipment. This is for the installation. This item has been reviewed by our staff, and we are recommending this item to be approved by the board, and I'll be happy to address any questions.
Any questions?
You mentioned that, you said most of this is included in the budget. Is there anything on this that's not included in the budget?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, how close does this get us to 100%? Are we-
It does.
This gets us
For
there.
the tolling equipment, yes, this will finish it up. This gets
That's
us through,
fantastic.
we have 4 turnpikes remaining.
Great. Any other questions or comments? You're, again, I assume this is stating the obvious, you and your staff have reviewed this, and you're recommending that we
Yes, sir.
approve this matter. Mr. Chairman, then I would move for approval of item 1052 in the amount of $13,995,877.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is 1053, and we get to hear from Ms. Julie Porter again.
Good morning again. I'm quite shorter than most of my peers. Item number 1053 is an item to consider and take action to vote for approval of the payment register. We bring this item to the board every single month to give you an opportunity to see the payments that we have done throughout the month. We do those payments in accordance with our bylaws. This gives you an opportunity to have transparency into the payments that we are actually issuing for the specified month, and to have the opportunity to ask questions if you have any. This is for the month of February. With the timing of our board meetings now, we are always going to be a little bit in arrears. So this one, again, is February of 2023. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Porter? Thank you.
Yes, and I would recommend approval of this item.
Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of the register for the month of February 2023.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes. The next items on the agenda are items 1054 through 1063 from the, on engineering and construction, and I'd ask Mr. Berry to call on the staff for these items.
Thank you, Chairman Love. Our first couple of items will be presented by Mr. T.J. Deal.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the authority. This morning, item number 1054 has 3 parts to it, and as I go through these, just feel free to stop and ask any questions that you need. First one's going to be for the Gilcrease Expressway. This is supplemental agreement number 26, and it is for $6,701.10. This supplemental agreement will be adding 1 new item to compensate the contractor for additional work. It was necessary to plug some existing drainage openings in the concrete parapet on bridges M, N, S, and T, and this was to prevent surface water from spilling over and eroding the levee system. The cost for this item includes all material, labor, and equipment necessary to perform this work.
As somebody who lives behind that levee system, or at least works behind that levee system, I appreciate you protecting it.
Yes, ma'am, you're very welcome. Next item is on TMC 107D1. Sherwood Construction is our contractor, and this is supplemental agreement number 9 and change order number 10 combined, and it is for $806,256.67. This change order will provide additional appropriations for the overrun of 6 pay items, and it will establish 2 new items to the contract. The unclassified excavation item was overran due to areas of undercutting unsuitable material on the roadway throughout the project. Similarly, supplemental agreement number 2 added an undercutting item for areas specifically around the bridge and drainage structure locations. So this roadway undercut will account for an overrun of $125,435.47. Solid slab sodding was overrun due to heavily eroded areas that required regrading and resodding for an overrun of $118,440.73. A planned temporary detour used additional aggregate base in lieu of asphalt, resulting in an overrun amount of $274,789.85. However, this change did provide an overall cost savings to the authority in the amount of $650,359.32, and this was documented in the previously approved change order number 8. Additional concrete thickness was necessary in isolated areas in order to construct the planned profile grade of the new roadway. This resulted in the overrunning of the concrete material an additional $72,903.94. Structural concrete was also overrun for the light pole footings due to a change in the barrier wall design, which was described in supplemental agreement number 6. This overrun amounts to $71,322.82. Additional portable barrier wall was utilized due to phasing changes during construction. The additional wall was necessary to meet safety requirements for edge drop-offs and for additional length of tapers to meet safety standards. This resulted in an overrun of $126,308.65. Galvanized steel pipe posts are also being added for the speed limit signs due to high winds damaging the existing signposts. This cost includes the removal and the reset of those sign structures in the amount of $6,172.98. And additionally, this change order will also fund the pavement smoothness incentive, which is in accordance with the contract special provision 430. And this project is approximately 4 miles from milepost 218 to milepost 222 on the Turner Turnpike, with the corresponding incentive amount earned of $10,882.24. I will just point out that this is obviously a little bit of a larger change order than what we typically like to do. But I also would like to state that we have had several cost savings change orders throughout this project. And so we've been able to keep our contract growth just above 4% on this contract.
Just a comment, and that's exactly what I was going to comment on, what you just said, because, one of the things I think the board always looks at is on a fairly large contract of this size, what's the cumulative change order and supplemental agreements amount? And we certainly like to keep those below 5%. I mean, sometimes we can't, sometimes we can, but if they stay below 5% on a contract this size, you almost always have a lot of change orders on a very large contract. So anyway, thank you.
Yes, sir. Next one here is for TMC 107D2. This is also Sherwood Construction. This is supplemental agreement number 4, and it is for $20,915.28. This supplemental agreement will be adding 2 new items to the contract. During excavation, a layer of rock was encountered in the subgrade. Rock excavation was required in order to install drainage structures and retaining walls 1, 4, and 6. And then some modifications to the drainage structures 36B and 36D were necessary in order to match corresponding roadway elevations. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Our staff has reviewed these items, and we would recommend approval of item number 1054.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Deal on item 1050? Or 1054, excuse me, sorry. If no further questions, I make a motion for the approval of item 1054 as presented by Mr. Deal.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cone?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
TJ, you're up again, item 1055.
Yes, sir. Item 1055 is a contract modification to an existing construction management contract. This is with our consultant Benchmark, and it is for contract JKT MC11. This is a grade drain and surface and city street repair of Sarah Road from State Highway 152 north to to Southwest 29th Street. This is a not-to-exceed amount of $394,630. This will move the contract total from $1,321,400 to $1,716,030. This particular construction contract has had some utility delays occur on it. I brought a few different items for a water line relocation before this. And the original construction completion date was supposed to be November of 2022, but due to those delays, we're now looking at August of this year for completion. So this is just accounting for keeping our consultant on site longer than anticipated. Construction staff has reviewed this, and we do recommend approval of item 1055.
Are there any questions for Mr. Deal on item 1055? If no further questions, I make a motion for the approval of item 1055 as presented by Mr. Deal.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Item 1056, TJ.
Sir, this will also be a construction management modification, and this is for our on-demand contract for our system-wide cashless tolling conversion. This will be modification number 1 for our consultant Poe and Associates. This will be a not-to-exceed amount of $641,286. This will move the contract amount from $1,400,000 to $2,041,286. Currently, Poe and Associates has been utilized to convert our Cimarron Creek, and most recently have started working on our Muskogee Turnpike. And so this is just ensuring we have enough funds in their contract to perform that work. And construction staff has reviewed these items, and we would recommend approval of item 1056.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Deal?
TJ, this just covers these for the Muskogee, so we may need to expand this again when we add the rest of them?
It's possible. We have 3 different consultants on this on-demand contract, Poe and Associates, Tetra Tech, and Atkins. Currently, Atkins is finishing up on the H.E. Bailey, and there's a potential that they'll need some more funds I might bring to you next month. And then we are about to engage Tetra Tech on our Indian Nation, and our next turnpike's coming forward. So there's a chance, but this might be one of the last ones for Poe on this time.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
TJ, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is the increase in funds basically due to the expansion? And when I say expansion, I mean the additional conversions going on?
Yeah, I originally set up these contracts at a not to exceed of 1.4 million, just as a best guess at the time. I think once we got on the Cimarron, we realized some of the things we needed to work out on these conversion projects. We now kind of understand a little bit more of the scope that's necessary for these consultants to perform on these projects, and utilizing them on multiple jobs has just grown that contract value for us.
So it's additional duties that they're performing.
Yes, sir.
Any more questions? If no further questions, I'll make a motion that we approve item 1056 as presented by Mr. Deal.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Mr. Deal, item 1057.
Yes, sir. This will be for a new construction management contract, and it's on the Cherokee Turnpike. This will be the pavement rehabilitation and cable barrier installation on the entirety. The consultant selected was Hudson Prince. This will be a not-to-exceed amount of $591,909.05. The total construction contract value that was awarded last month was $11,642,684.83, which puts this just approximately 5% of the overall construction contract total. Staff has reviewed these items, and we would recommend approval of item 1057.
Are there any more questions for item?
Did you make a comment that this covers the entirety?
The cable barrier installation, yes, this will be adding cable barrier to the entirety of the Cherokee. Yes, sir.
Very good.
If no further questions, I make a motion that we approve item 1057 as presented by Mr. Deal.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
TJ, your last item, 1058.
Yes, sir. This will also be a new construction management contract, and this is for INMC 67. This is a bridge rehabilitation on the Indian Nation Turnpike. The consultant selected was CEC. This will be a not-to-exceed amount of $409,257.84. This particular one is a little bit higher of a percentage. This is about 14% of the overall contract value. This bridge awarded last month was just under $3 million. We do generally see some higher values for our consultants on the Indian Nation just due to the sheer proximity of the drive time and getting their labor forces down there on the Indian Nation. We did, however, select CEC for another project on the Indian Nation just north of this one, which is our pavement rehab from milepost 20 to 30. And because we selected the same consultant for 2 projects in the same area, that contract actually became about 2% of the overall contract value. So we do see a good cost savings by bundling these projects. And that one's actually low enough that under that $250,000 threshold, it actually doesn't require your approval at this time. But just wanted to make you aware of that. The staff has reviewed this item, and we would recommend approval of item 1058.
Any other questions for Mr. Deal? If not, I make a motion for the approval of item 1058 as presented by Mr. Deal.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Lever?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is item 1059. Mr. Butler?
Good morning, Mr. Berry, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Based on what I've seen this morning, I'm going to go ahead and recommend approval for all my items right now. Engineering Division has two items we'd like to present this morning. That's item 1059 and 1060. Again, we'd like to recommend approval on both these items. First one is for two construction contracts. First projects there are WRMC 143. This is asphalt pavement rehab from milepost 307.4 to 312.3. And this includes the Miami Travel Information Center parking lot, and this is in Ottawa County. Just had one bidder on the project. As you can see there, that's APAC Central, the amount of $5,196,500. This is about 33% over the engineer's estimate. There were 31 pay items that was in this set of plans, and all of them, except for two, were pretty much in line. We had two that were outliers in terms of the pay items, and that was our S4 asphalt. We had over 22,000 tons of asphalt on this project. Our engineer's estimate had $105 per ton. APAC Central had $139 per ton, and this amounted to about $768,000 of that overage.
And we have gone back and checked that price per ton?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, and, you know, the 139 per ton, you know, is probably a little bit high. The 105 that the engineer's estimate has, it is low. You know, this is way up on the Will Rogers Turnpike. It is nighttime work. You know, in the bid opening for this particular project, I think there were 7 other asphalt projects that are daytime work and may have been a little more appealing to contractors. So could have been some of the reasons for some of the higher prices. The other item was coal milling, and there were 185,000 square yards of coal milling. Our engineer's estimate had $2 per square yard, and the contractor had almost $5. So that accounted for about $520,000 of the overage. So those two pay items combined, that was about $1.3 million of the overage.
Darren, we usually, you know, see more than one bid. What do we feel, how do we feel about the fact we only have one bid and we want to accept it?
Yeah. Up in this, again, you know, this is way up on the Will Rogers Turnpike, and I think it probably, if we look back, it has a history of, you know, maybe 1 or 2 bidders per project. Again, you know, this is part of the ODOT bid opening. There were 7 other asphalt projects of similar nature that were, I believe, daytime projects. So it's competitive out there. There's other work that we're up against. That could have been part of it.
Are you guys somewhat territorial? I mean, like being in APAC's kind of backyard?
Yeah,
as far as-
absolutely. Yeah, if you look back at, you know, this neck of the woods, I think, you know, since I've been with the Turnpike Authority the last 15 years, I think they've always been up in that,
Mm-hmm.
in that part of the Will Rogers.
So again, we've gone back and looked at the difference between the engineer's estimate and their estimate on coal milling, and we think that's in line based on the project.
Yeah, I believe so. I think this is a situation where on these 2 pay items, the engineer's estimate is low.
And we see prices for these things go up and down a lot these days.
Yeah,
so-
they're all over the place, and to some extent, that engineer's estimate, you're constantly kind of chasing those numbers. Again, we work with ODOT, utilize their bid history. Whitney Pogue is our contact over here with ODOT. She does a great job, reviews our engineer's estimates, and we love that feedback, and we always send that over to our consultants and review that. But yeah, these two, for some reason, got biased. They were bid higher than we anticipated. Second project there is ITB 2023-006. This is in conjunction with SP-63A, which is our Turner cashless conversion project. This is for fabrication and delivery of 13 overhead sign structure gantries for toll equipment at various locations on the Turner Turnpike as part of that conversion to cashless tolling. Had two bidders on the project. Mid-State Traffic Control was a low bid at $552,470, and that's about 6.2% over the engineer's estimate, so not a bad bid there. Staff's reviewed both of these projects here, and we recommend approval on this item.
Are there any further questions for Mr. Butler? If no further questions, I make a motion for the approval of item 1059 as presented by Mr. Butler.
We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Barry?
Yes.
Mr. Cone?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Item 1060, Darren?
Yes, sir. Item 1060, this is submitted for the consideration or approval by the authorities, a request to establish a maximum speed of 80 miles per hour on a portion of the Cimarron, H.E. Bailey, and Muskogee Turnpikes. This speed limit adjustment shall be established at the following locations. This is at Part A. There's Noble, Pawnee, and Payne counties. This is our Cimarron Turnpike, also known as US 412 for milepost 0 to 59. Part B, this is in Payne County. This is our Cimarron Spur Turnpike, also known as State Highway 312, and this is from milepost 21A to 27A. Part C, this is Comanche, Caddo, and Grady counties, and this is our H.E. Bailey Turnpike, also known as I-44. This is from milepost 47 to milepost 106, which is from Lawton to the Oklahoma City Inn, approximately 59 miles. In Muskogee County, we've got the Muskogee Turnpike, also known as State Highway 351, and this is from milepost 37 to milepost 56, which is approximately 19 miles. This request is based on a speed study report completed by the Oklahoma Department of Transportation's Traffic Division in July of 2020. Also recently updated speed studies at site-specific locations, 5-year accident data, average daily traffic, safety appurtenances, roadway surface conditions, tolling operations, and roadway geometrics. This information was collected and analyzed in connection with the authority's rural turnpikes and found that it is reasonable, given current conditions, to consider an 80-mile-per-hour maximum speed at the aforementioned locations. The authority is authorized by Title 47, Oklahoma Statutes 2011, Section 11-801D, to prescribe maximum and minimum speeds for trucks, buses, and automobiles using the turnpikes. Section 11-801D also provides that speeds approved by the authority shall become effective only after approval by the Commissioner of Public Safety and after signs have been posted on the turnpikes giving notice thereof. The Commissioner of Public Safety has approved the authority's proposed maximum and minimum speed set forth in this item by concurrence dated March 29th of this year. You can see there the following 2 pages are Commissioner Tipton's concurrence in his letter, and then the 2 pages there after that is a comprehensive map of our speed limit changes to 80 mile per hour across our turnpike system. This is the 3rd time, as you're aware, that we've come to the board asking for these increased speeds. And you can see we had quite a few in July of 2020. We had one segment there on the Indian Nation Turnpike last year at this time, and then the sections that we're looking at today. So staff's reviewed these items. We're recommending approval, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
TJ, do we have cable barrier along all these miles?
So, you know, again, like the letters, like the item says, you know, it won't be in effect until we post speed limit signs. So
Right.
of the sections we brought before you today, we do have some sections in there that are ready, that we have converted to cashless, so it's open road. We've put up the cable barrier, the positive barrier. We've done resurfacing on the roadways. So some of these sections will turn to 80 mile per hour pretty quick. There's some others that we still want to As an example, on the Cimarron, we've got a 6-mile stretch of cable that hasn't been installed yet. So where we are ready to go 80, and we've met some of these criteria, these conditions we've talked about, we'll post those pretty quick. There'll be another group that will come a little bit later as we finish up Delbar retrofit, diamond grind, convert to cashless and those sorts of things.
Yeah, my only comment, and based upon what Joe had mentioned earlier, by December, you said earlier that we would have cable barrier across everything. Yeah, it's just a point that I want to make sure that we obviously get that done as quick as we can, because I think that obviously enhances the ability not to have crossover head-ons, higher speeds and things.
Absolutely.
We just need to be aware of it.
Absolutely.
It's more of a comment.
Yeah, again, once we check all those boxes, I think that's kind of our green light to start posting signs.
You know, when we did our speed study back in 2 years ago, there was a proposal to put 80 miles an hour on the entire Turnpike system, and
That's
we
correct.
didn't do that because a lot of our accidents take place, I don't know exactly what percentage, but a lot of them take place at our toll booths, either
That's
going
correct.
into the toll booth area or coming out of it. And the fact that we're going to plate pay now probably helps
That's exactly right.
enabling us to go to a higher speed limit on some of these
Yeah,
turnpikes.
absolutely. And in addition to that, keep in mind that, we're targeting our rural turnpikes. You wouldn't see this speed increase, in segments of the Creek Turnpike or the John Kilpatrick Turnpike. It'll be the rural turnpikes. And areas where there's a lot of heavy traffic, like the Turner and Will Rogers, the east 15 miles of the Turner is 80 mile per hour. After we had 6-lane that and lit it, nothing else would ever be converted to 80 until it's widened in those
I'd be,
sections.
surprised and not want to do this unless the Highway Patrol agreed to it too. And the fact that the Commissioner of Public Safety has signed off on it, I think is
Correct.
important.
Yeah, we believe it's been thoroughly vetted, and again, we recommend approval.
Darren, you may not have this information. Have we done speed studies on the segments that we've increased the
We
rate
have.
to 80, and has it been decrease, increase, stayed the same as far as accidents?
Yeah, so we've got the sections of Turnpike that we turned to 80 in July of 2020, and then the one section on the nation last year. And we have not gone back and conducted speed studies at those locations, but that's on our list of things to do. We do want to gather that data and see what changes took place.
But we have done the speed studies on the recent speed studies. on these
Absolutely.
routes.
Yeah, the original study from 2020 was a comprehensive study by ODOT that included the ODOT rural interstates. And if you recall, there's a number of segments on I-35 and I-40 that have gone from 70 to 75 as a result of that study. So the study basically authorized us to go, the Turnpike, to go on rural turnpikes to 80 mile per hour. When certain conditions are met, that's what we continue to work on.
Yeah, my question was more, the ones we've turned to 80, have accidents increased, decreased, stayed
Yeah,
the same?
we have not
And
done
has
a
the
study.
Fatality rate gone up or down?
Right. Yeah, we have not done a study, but that's on our list to go back and look at that.
Thank you.
Well, this is anecdotal, not supported by data. I drive the Turner a lot, and that first 15 miles or 6 lanes, I would be shocked if it's not a lot safer than the rest of the
Absolutely.
4-lane
Correct.
highway,
Correct.
at any speed.
Yeah, at any speed.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Butler? If not, I make a motion for the approval of item 1060 as presented by Darren Butler.
We have a motion for approval. We have a second.
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cone?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Next item is item 1061 that will be presented by Mr. Todd Gore.
Good morning, members of the,
Morning.
today I bring item 1061. This is declare surplus property and authorize the director to sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of the same. The following parcels consistent of approximate acres and locations identified below were previously acquired by the authority. Parcel WR 140-21 and 22 in section 24, township 24 north, range 19 east. Approximate 46.5 acres on the Will Rogers Turnpike in Craig County. The second parcel, CM Section 9, Township 20 North, Range 5 East, approximate acres, 4 acres in Cimarron, on the Cimarron Turnpike in Pawnee County. These two, as you can see, attached behind are pictorials of the two properties. The first one is property that was acquired and been utilized for staging and during construction, things like that over the years. And at this time, we feel like it is best to go ahead and dispose of that property and go through that process. The second parcel, the CM 105, is there in the northeast corner of the Cimarron and State Highway 18. We've reviewed it and again believe that it'd be beneficial to go ahead and surplus it as it's not currently being utilized for us. A staff review of the property was conducted and it has been determined that a portion of the described parcels and approximate acres identified was acquired as an unowned remnant and is not needed for construction of the maintenance needs of the Turnpike system. Based on that determination, staff recommends that the authority consider and vote to declare the above described parcels to be declared surplus and authorize the director to obtain a survey, appraisal, sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of the property, including use in a land swap to acquire other properties needed for the Turnpike system. With that, I stand for questions.
Todd, have any of the joining landowners voiced some interest in acquiring these properties? Are you going to sell them private sale or public auction?
So far, we have not had any adjoining owners ask for them. We didn't, CM 105, we suspect that landowner probably would have some interest in it. With WR 140, and both of them having public access, it would go through an auction process.
That's kind of a little odd-shaped land, the way it's drawn. Is it, we don't own anything adjacent to that?
Are you referring to number two?
105, yeah.
105? Yes, that was acquired original part and it's kind of left over an unused remnant to the original landowner. And so back when it was originally acquired, it was it was accommodated into that. And if you'll notice the tree area in the middle there was a drainage area that we had to rework as part of this construction of the Cimarron. So that impacted the property from its original use to when we started utilizing it to build the Turnpike.
I do have a question about the first one too. This may be better directed to Secretary Gatz, but at some point in time, I know Access Oklahoma has talked about one of the projects is 6 laning, the Will Rogers up to Claremore. Some point in time, will all the Will Rogers be considered for expansion? And if so, would this be a piece of property we'd end up needing at some point?
Go ahead, Jim.
When we take a look at these that are along turnpikes, we always maintain or keep the amount that we would need for a future expansion like that. So the red line that you see is that outlines that triangular piece of property. The part that is parallel to I-44 will be offset somewhat what we think we need for a future expansion.
Okay, good.
So we try to anticipate that on any surplus property that we get rid of.
Yeah.
What is the distance that you all, just like on the turn when you drive up, what is that, 30 feet that you're moving the fence?
So that varies depending on the grade and section, whether it's a tremendous amount of cut or a tremendous amount of fill, or so that can vary. What I will tell you is on more modern new turnpikes like the Kickapoo, it varies from about 200 feet total width, so
Yeah.
that's fence to fence, out to about 600 feet. Now it gets wider than that in the areas where there's an interchange, but that's kind of what our approximate footprint is, and again, that depends on terrain. Our network is pretty straight and flat, and so we have to move a lot of dirt sometimes to accommodate that.
Well, it just didn't look like it's very far when you
Yeah,
drive
right.
on most of it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something else that we might need at some point in time, even though it may be way down the road.
And yes, Mr. Jones, yeah, it is something like Kelly said, we do in our review, look at what the future needs and what potential right-of-way future will need to account for and preserve that needs for the future.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions for item 1061? If not, I make a motion that we approve item 1061 as presented by Mr. Gore.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Item 1062, Todd?
Yes. Authorized to provide permanent easement and sewer line on parcel WR 140-21 and 22. Submitted for the approval of the authority is a request to authorize the director to permit a 15-foot permanent easement in connection with the town of Big Cabin's installation of a new force main sewer line through OTA's parcel and WR 140-21 and WRI 140-22 located in Craig County on the Will Rogers Turnpike. The proposed easement would allow the town of Big Cabin to construct and maintain a replacement 6-inch force main sewer line through parcels WRI 40-21 and 22 in section 24, township 24 north, range 19 east in Craig County. The new line will run outside OTA's right-of-way and parallel to the Will Rogers Turnpike. The staff review the property conveyed by easement has been conducted and has been determined that the easement will not interfere with any construction or maintenance needs of the Will Rogers Turnpike. As if you'll note, this is in relation to number 1 on the surplus parcel, and what we would do is the city is expanding, replacing the force main from Big Cabin to their town, and so they've asked for an easement across our now deemed surplus property that we work with them prior to actually disposing of the entirety of the property.
So when we sell it, it'll be burdened by this easement.
The
that we're
easement's
gonna
already
grant
be
them.
done, right.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further questions for item 1061? If not, I make a motion for the approval of item 1061 as presented by Mr. Gore.
I think it's 62.
62, I'm sorry. I make a motion for item 1062 as presented by Mr. Gore.
Okay, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes.
Chairman, my last item is item 1063. Mr. Gore?
Thank you. Consider and adopt a resolution necessity for the condemnation of certain rural property interests needed in connection with the authority's redevelopment of the Turnpike Stroud Service Plaza. Submitted for the approval of the authority as an item to consider and adopt the attached resolution of necessity for the condemnation of certain real property interests needed for the established easements of the relocation of pipeline facility in Lincoln County as needed, necessitated by the OTA's redevelopment of the Stroud Service Plaza on the Turner Turnpike. This item I bring to you as part of the Service Plaza redevelopment. We are having to relocate 2 pipeline easements that are existed, and they were working with trying to secure the needed easements for their relocation that we are responsible for. They ran into, could not come to an agreement with the landowner, and at that, we are trying to secure that easement that is needed to relocate that pipeline. And if we are able to reach an agreement, we need to be able to condemn the interest that is needed. The pipeline relocation is 100% OTA's responsibility, so we have worked with the other pipeline companies in the past where they have taken on the responsibility of doing the condemnation and had us fairly involved into it. There was some good things and bad things with that process. So this time around, with the same situation, we are going to be the ones taking on the condemnation to help with timing and managing costs and ultimate settlement and numbers or anything like that that comes out of that.
Do we know who owns the pipeline?
Yes, one is Magellan Partners, and the other is Coffeyville Resources.
Why is this our responsibility?
The pipelines themselves are in conflict with the new rework and the widening of the plaza. And so since it is our cause and they are pre-existed us, that is, their cost is 100% on us to pay for the relocation of them. Since they have a private easement that they're utilizing today, and they're not in public right away, that is outside ours, and that is what puts it onto our responsibility to pay that cost.
So our cost is just for acquiring the easement, and then they carry the cost of relocating, or we pay for the pipeline?
We pay for everything. And that's why we're going to take responsibility, doing this to manage the condemnation cost.
At this location, there's more going on than just the service plaza. We're also, for about 3/4 of a mile, 6-laning the Turner Turnpike. It'll be another jump-off point, if you will, to go both east and west when construction takes place to widen the Turner. So that impact to an old easement, it's an old pipeline easement, right, Todd? So
Yeah, it predated even the original Stroud Service Plaza.
yeah, so it's old. And so we're going, our right-of-way line is expanding, so that's, and ditches are getting pushed further out, so that's impacting that pipeline. They're also, I think, if I remember right, they had a pretty narrow easement, so they're having to move over parallel to the existing easement. They just can't stay within the easement they've operated within.
It goes, the pipeline itself is also as old as the easement itself. And so they are very limited on what they could do to get out, to adjust their pipeline, and it ultimately requires them to go a new route. And we went through several variations of potential relocation and adjustments and everything before we came to this final determination of what was going to need to happen to relocate them. And so this was the final determination of impact.
And then we will build it in accordance with what their specs are, and then do they sign off approving?
So we will provide them we'll get the easement, they provide the plans and everything, and it will ultimately be through a URA, utility relocation agreement. We will reimburse them for doing the work. So we'll get them the easement that they need. They'll go and have their contractors and everything to relocate the work, and then per that agreement, they will request reimbursement from us.
Typically, the only utilities that we relocate through a construction contract are water or sewer. We stay away from just about everything else, just about all the time.
I would
Probably not a
highly
bad,
suggest
probably not a
that.
bad idea.
Good.
Todd, at this point in time, we're authorizing this in case this is needed, and obviously we're going to keep on working to try to avoid that. But before we actually would do that, can we see a graphic of where this actually is?
Yes, I can get that to you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Gore? If not, I make a motion that we approve items 1063 as presented by Mr. Gore.
We have a motion for approval for items 1063. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cone?
Yes.
Mr. Love?
Yes. The next items on the agenda are reports, information only. The first one is our trustee report. Ms. Singleton.
Chairman, members of the board, Secretary Gatz. As bond trustee of the authority, all of monthly transfers have been made pursuant to the trust agreement. To our knowledge, all other requirements of the authority set forth under the trust agreement have been satisfied. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next report is our operating results. Wendy Smith.
Chairman Love, Secretary Gatz, members of the authority. You've all received your operations report for the month of February prepared by the Comptroller Division. With statewide February 2023 weather improved over the previous year, the toll revenues for the system reported at approximately 10% of an increase over February of '22. And also, because of that, division managers have held revenue fund operating expenses to 27.5% under the 2023 operating budget. A lot of that is no snow removal. I'm sure there was a little bit, but compared to last year. Heavy truck traffic continues to be strong, and our toll revenues are outpacing projections by about 1.3% for the first 2 months of the year. Also, as far as the Gilcrease goes, as you might recall, for February of 2023, it averaged about 15,374 transactions per day. I went ahead and ran March, but it only went through the first 30 days, but we averaged 16,882 transactions, with the high being 19,499 on Friday, March the 10th. That's a 9.8% increase over February. And also, we just noticed as patrons continue to discover that extra time savings and continue to take advantage on the road for their daily commute, the average weekday transactions are just over 18,030 per day for those 30 days, whereas the weekend average is just over about 13,700. So we're happy with what we're seeing so far on the Gilcrease Turnpike.
It's not just time, it's also peace of mind. You get to your destination a lot more relaxed.
That's what you were saying. All right, I'll take any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next report is from our consulting engineer, Jimmy Sparks.
Good morning, Chairman Love, members of the authority, Secretary Gatz. Concerning the trust requirements, we are well underway with our bridge and drainage inspections for the 2023 report. Christie's just starting our pavement inspections now that our freeze-thaw cycle should be over. Our main hard freezes are over. In recent E&C committee meetings, started reporting on the number of overloads that travel or cross over the Turnpike system, and just to give you an idea of how many of those heavy loads are out there. In March, our engineers checked, I believe our count was around 16 of those overloads, so continue to see a lot of movement, and I'm assuming that will only get heavier as the year goes on. Our monthly report did not contain any detailed reports of bridge impacts, but on Thursday, March 30th, you'll see this next month, we were notified of some damage to the bracing between the beams on the H.E. Bailey south section. That would be bridge 24.80B. That is Turnpike over US 70 and 277 at Randall Ed. Damage was minimal, and we'll work with maintenance and engineering to get those repairs taking place. While I was traveling the site, I hadn't been south of Lawton in a while on the H.E. Bailey, and definitely not since the Bailey AET project had started. And I don't know, Mr. Love, if you've been that way lately, but with the expanded ramps at Walters, now with the toll booths removed out from under the bridge, even though it's in construction and there's only one lane in each direction there, you can already see the safety enhancements that are going to take place as part of this investment. We studied the Walters Toll Plaza when it was in its under the bridge configuration back in 2007, and did a value engineering study on it, how to do repairs that were needed to the pavement, how to do the project economically, and really it's through the advancement and the investment in AET that makes a lot of this possible too. There was just no good way with the ramps and all that. Even if you moved the plaza out from under the bridge, it was still a very expensive project. So it just really speaks to the investment and really the safety that we'll see from that.
Pretty bad location all along, I think. So.
Yes, and I believe it was always one of our lowest pike pass utilized areas as well. So it'll be great all around. As always, our project summaries and our monthly report, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
I have a general question, just made me think of it, when you talked about the AET conversions, and it's not necessarily related to the Bailey, but on the JKT, I noticed areas where, again, this may be a little bit out of your scope, but either one of you, where we had existing buildings and/or what's the plan for that as we move ahead?
I don't mind trying to answer that. So the existing buildings that we have, some of them were basically like an office building. We're still utilizing those for some storage. A lot of the controls and electrical equipment is still housed in those, so those will remain. One thing that may change in the future when the projects are completely completed are some of those plazas where there's extra concrete and extra ramp there. Some of that space I have noticed is being utilized for parking, overnight parking. So we will be removing some of that. Right now we're trying to move forward with the cashless conversion as quick as we can get it done.
Right.
In addition to putting in cable barrier and doing our normal pavement rehabs, those are really the three major things initiatives that we have that are in our capital plan. Our number one, cable barrier, and number two, pavement rehabs, and number three is this cashless conversion that we have to get done. The cashless conversion has caused some confusion on our network because you can effectively get on the Turnpike network at Yukon and you're on a cashless system, and then you get on the Turner and you have to pay cash. You can get on the Creek and it's cashless, right. And then you end up on the Will Rogers and you have to stop and pay cash again. So we have to get that conversion done quickly. As soon as that's done, we're going to go back through and do some cleanup on some of the ramps like we're on the Kilpatrick. And any of those buildings that are not being utilized for something, we'll do something a little bit different with, or we'll have them removed.
That's a question. Good. No, I mean, realize it's down the pecking order of importance, but it's just a wonder, and I didn't know at some point in time there might be a safety hazard as well.
This is more of a comment also. I noticed on social media in the last month, there was a post where someone had taken a picture after a bridge hit and posted it on social media and saying, beware of driving on Oklahoma turnpikes. So I don't know if you guys have seen that, but obviously that's not something we want to see go around, because we work really, really hard to address these issues and get them fixed. But I hope we're watching for that, because that's a concern.
We have a list of relatively low-hanging bridges that are our shortest ones, shortest clearance, that our maintenance folks check every day.
But I just worry about social media going out there, because
Sure.
once it's out there, it never goes away. And it's just not, it's not an accurate depiction of what we do.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Our next report is from our Highway Patrol report, Major Kennedy. All the way from the back of the room.
Way in the back. I get my steps in that way. As a matter of esprit de corps, I kind of regret that I have my high-vis safety vest in the back of my car. So certainly recognize and respect the danger of doing any type of maintenance, enforcement, or construction work on the side of the road. So just wanted to note that. Chairman, members of the authority, Secretary Gatz, Director E. Kelly, for the month of February, Turnpike troopers made 3,718 violator contacts. We assisted 848 motorists and investigated 104 vehicle collisions, Troopers worked 993 shifts, and we averaged 161 miles per shift for a total of 159,000 miles driven. We did report one fatality on the Turner Turnpike. Secretary Gatz talked about the occupant protection. This is one where we probably could have seen a different result if the driver had been properly restrained in their vehicle. We did have 14 criminal interdictions on the Turnpike system, and I have summary information of collision reduction and enforcement activity included in a report. Before any questions, I would like to report that we started our 71st Academy last week with 25 cadets, and we're hoping to see some increases in Turnpike staffing as a direct result of that. So take any questions now.
When does that academy end?
It's an abbreviated academy. It's a bridge academy that takes current law enforcement personnel. I don't know the exact end date, but it's certainly shorter than our traditional 22-week academy.
Okay.
Major, with the criminal interdictions, are there any asset forfeitures? And my next question is, do we get a piece of that, or do they go to the county where the interdictions happen?
Asset forfeiture is kind of a complicated thing, so I didn't research the specific breakdown. There are always some cash vehicle assets along with seizure of contraband drugs and weapons as well as a criminal arrest. I believe all those go either.
Sorry to catch you off guard.
No, that's okay. Let me get back to you on some specifics as far as the procedures on those asset forfeitures that do occur on the turnpikes.
Thank you.
There was a recent wreck where a vehicle ran off the highway and hit a truck that was parked on a shoulder. Do we know any information about that wreck? This was in the last few days.
Is that the one up on the Will Rogers Turnpike?
Yeah.
So we had some high wind.
Oh, it was Creek County. I thought it was
On the Turner.
on the Turner.
I don't have anything specific on that.
Okay. The reason I was asking was we're always concerned about trucks that are parking overnight on the side of the road and the risk, and I was just wondering if this was a temporary or if this was part of that concern that we have, because
I'll
we're always
follow up
concerned.
and get some information on that.
Thank you.
The crash on the Will Rogers, many of you may saw on social media, we had a truck actually blow over on one of our troopers' cars. Fortunately, he was out investigating another collision and was unharmed, but certainly a very dangerous place to be on the side of that highway.
Major, if I might, the accident, the crash that you're talking about was on the Turner, and it was a sedan that had drifted off the shoulder and did strike a semi that was parked in the rear, and did result in a fatality. And again, there's two things that we should take away from there. Number one it is extremely dangerous, even in a first responder vehicle that is utilizing red and blues and every precaution that you can imagine to pull off on the shoulder of a turnpike or a highway or anything else. That should only occur in absolute emergency conditions or for enforcement efforts. And the other thing to take away from that is we are, again, seeing far too many roadway departure type accidents, whether that's involving a collision with a vehicle that's a first responder, way too often, major. And not only did that total and thank goodness those vehicles were unoccupied at the time, totaled a trooper's vehicle and a fire truck. So horrible collision. And the accident on the Turner, absolutely tragic. And we've got to do everything that we can to make sure our shoulders stay clear. And again, but it's up to the drivers to recognize their responsibility while they're behind the wheel, to put away distractions, make sure they're not driving either impaired or super tired, and really be careful out there. It's a dangerous network that we've got on occasion, and certainly we don't want to cause other issues out there that decrease the safety.
Well, and that's true whether it's a toll road or Interstate 35.
Absolutely is, 100%.
It's not just related to us.
No, it is not. Thank you, Major.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, as always, I think I say this about every month, thank you, Major Kennedy, for what you and your troopers do for us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your continued support.
Next report is our Director's Report. Secretary Gatz.
Mr. Chairman, board members, want to talk just for a minute about a little bit of a transition into a new role that I'd like to announce to the board today. TJ Dill is going to step into a new role as the Turnpike Authority's Chief Engineer. Again, that's something that Joe has been doing double duty as a Deputy Director and Chief Engineer for too long. And he is going to the transition will allow him to expand his territory a little bit and really be more attentive to the daily activities as he assists me. But we're really excited about TJ stepping into the new role. A little bit about his history, and they sent me a bio, but I'm not going to use it because I've paid attention to him a little bit, and I'm going to be pretty close to everything I say, I think. OSU grad. Professional engineer now, and certainly I would characterize TJ as a transportation engineer, and I put an exclamation point on transportation. Starting out in 2009 with the Department of Transportation, he's spent a lot of time in construction. He managed a construction residency for the Department of Transportation before he was even got his professional engineer license. So that gives you a little bit of an indication about his capability. Also, he accelerated and served in a capacity as a construction engineer for District 4 in ODOT. District 4, to give you a little bit of a geographical reference, includes Oklahoma City and the metropolitan area north up I-35 all the way to the Kansas line. So he dealt with some of the most challenging construction projects that the Department of Transportation had. Left for a short stint in the private sector, and we were super excited and fortunate to get him back to the Turnpike Authority in 2020. He served the authority very well, and as construction engineer, director of construction, has done a great job, and really look forward to all of the things that he's going to accomplish in his role as chief engineer. So TJ, welcome. We look forward to having you in that role, and congratulations.
TJ, congratulations. You know, we've stolen several pretty good people from ODOT over the years. Secretary Gatz, Joe, TJ, I'm sure there are others, but really congratulations. We've been fortunate.
Talk for a minute about plate pay conversions, and Mr. Chairman, I very much appreciate your question to Marcus about our conversions. That conversion rate is a result of Marcus and his team working really, really hard at what they do, because, you know, converting from plate pay to a Pike Pass is such a better opportunity for the folks that travel the Turnpike network. I think that's a reflection of the emphasis they place on it. But we appreciate your consideration today of the new gantries for the Turner Turnpike as we continue to expand our conversion to plate pay. We've got 4 turnpikes left to convert. We don't have the exact conversion dates yet, but acquiring these gantries in advance gives us some efficiencies in both time and cost. And the team's done a good job of planning for those types of activities. We're well on our way to having all Oklahoma turnpikes converted completely to cashless by the end of 2024. A couple things of particular note. You know, the point of reference that I always have and I always will have is the toll plaza at Newcastle. When I stood down there with some of our troopers and first responders and some of our staff in the middle of a horrific accident that involved an ambulance, and one of our toll collectors that was in a toll booth. So ultimately, coming out of that, we put the conversion to cashless in high gear. It was something that was long overdue anyway, and really appreciate the board's support because the safety aspect that we see it every time we travel through one of those plazas that's been converted, whether that's 99 on the Cimarron, whether that's Walters or the Newcastle Plaza. It's a difference maker for us from a safety standpoint, and you've heard me say many times, where we have a cash toll plaza, you have 3 opportunities to have an accident. When you exit the main line, when you stop to pay the toll, and when you re-enter the main line. And minimizing those points of conflict is a game changer from an accident perspective. Toll plazas are some of the most dangerous locations that we have. So again, I appreciate the board's continuing support. Speed limit changes, certainly appreciate your consideration of changing the speed limits. The move from 75 to 80 miles an hour on parts of the Cimarron and the Bailey and the Muskogee are similar to changes we've had in recent history. That brings some consistency into our driver experience out there. The caveat is just as you point out. That 80 mile an hour posted black and white is for clear, dry conditions. As drivers, we have to take the responsibility of making adjustments based on weather conditions, based on our own driving capabilities. So again, that's something we want to reinforce at every turn, that it's not about providing safe turnpike travel, but it's about observing those, but not 5 miles an hour over, because you think our enforcement partners in the OHP won't write you a ticket. As we get to an 80 mile an hour speed limit, it's 80 miles an hour. And again, we ask for the traveling public to observe those black and white postings and be safe out there in their travels. Talking a little bit about the H.E. Bailey, again, we're close to reopening the mainline toll plaza there at Chickasha. Crews are preparing right now to get that thing opened. We closed the plaza back in June when we began the transition to plate pay, and again are excited about getting that operation finished and completed. Wendy mentioned the Gilcrease transactions and the service that the Gilcrease is providing to the traveling public, which I think is a testament to the transportation need that existed in that area. We're really excited about the opportunities that the Gilcrease is providing today and what it's going to provide for the future. And again, access into that west side of Tulsa. The thing we can't lose sight of is that need has been recognized since the 1960s. And again, the challenge was putting together a plan that could deliver that transportation improvement and that river crossing. And the Arkansas River in the Tulsa area is truly a barrier to transportation. And it took the Turnpike Authority working very closely with lots of partners to be able to make that happen. But it's one that we're extremely proud of, and look forward to all of the good things that that's going to provide and the good access and safe access that it's going to provide for the future. Safety campaign. I want to talk for a minute again about Make It Home Safe and Make Oklahoma Safe. I know we addressed it, but I think it's worth mentioning again. Every spring, our work zones double, triple, and we're going to have 16 work zones planned across the Turnpike system and Turnpike network. There's more than 145 out there on our highways and interstates, and really want to put that extra emphasis on the fact that it's a safety concern, you know, and we've got to do everything that we can to make sure the public has got this in the front of their mind as they travel through our work zones. Slow down, observe the posted speed limit. That's the biggest problem that I see in day-to-day travels in work zones, is we don't slow down like we should. Those posted speed limits are a little bit lower for a reason, because those are dangerous conditions. And again, we've got to be diligent and in our message and diligent in our safety practices. We're going to do everything we can to make those work zones as minimally disruptive as they can be. But we need that partnership from the traveling public to make them as safe as they can be. So, again, very much appreciate the Authority Board's display of support with your donning of the safety vest today. I know that was a little bit inconvenient, but I certainly believe that sends a strong message of support to our personnel that work in harm's way every day, and to all our construction partners. So, thank you very much for that. Mr. Chairman, at this point, I would stand for any questions that the Turnpike Authority Board may have of me.
Any questions? Comments? Okay, the next item on the agenda is a report on and discussion related to the Oklahoma Attorney General's request to the state auditor and inspector for an investigative audit of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. Secretary Gatz.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be a little bit brief in my remarks related to the AG's request for the investigative audit, and then I'll do my best to answer questions that I know some of the board members may have. You're aware we received a letter on March the 15th from the Attorney General that was directed to the state auditor asking for an investigative audit, and the general scope of that audit is going to include some of the transfers that ODOT and the Turnpike Authority have interagency, contracting and purchasing practices, and internal financial controls. And, you know, our response to the Attorney General's request is, first and foremost, we're going to do everything that we can to alleviate the concerns that the Attorney General has. Absolutely, without hesitation, I can say that emphatically. The other thing is that the Turnpike Authority welcomes the audit. We will fully comply with the state auditor and whatever information or requests that she has, along with the Attorney General Drummond, and certainly are respectful of their requests. So I think as exemplified today, we have that level of confidence because of some of the things we talked about here. You know, our annual comprehensive financial report and the job that's done there through our independent audit. That's a reflection of not just the audit process, but it's a reflection of the controls that the Turnpike Authority has in place internally that make our operation strong, and our processes and procedures. And again, that 32-year track record of recognized excellence in that financial reporting is not something that we take lightly. So the staff works at it very hard. And again, I think the most important thing that I would tell you is that, again, we are going to cooperate 100% with the state auditor and the Attorney General and provide them whatever information they ask for and need expeditiously and quickly. And again, look forward to the outcome. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would stand for any questions that the Turnpike Authority Board may have of me related to the investigative audit.
Well, as you said, certainly you and the staff will support the audit fully, and I think as I think the board feels the same way. You know, we want to do whatever's necessary to support the Attorney General's request. I assume we don't really know what the process is going to be until we hear from the state auditor, and but just want you to know if you need anything from the board, is there anything the board can do to help as we get into this process?
Mr. Chairman, it would be difficult to speculate at this point without a little bit of detail around what the auditor might need. The thing I can assure the board of is that I've sat down with our legal counsel, our financial advisors, and the Turnpike Authority's leadership staff, and made sure that we're working and we're prepared to be as responsive as we can be to whatever may come. And the staff is prepared. Again, I can't emphasize enough the level of confidence that I have in our operations and our staff. Certainly you as a board are cognizant of the job that our folks do. And again, that's reflected in everything from our annual comprehensive financial report to the interactions that we have with other entities that we engage with, like bond rating agencies. And, you know, bond rating agencies don't just look at our financials, they look at our management acumen, and typically we are pretty well rated, and I don't see that changing.
Because of the rating that that bond agency gives us, they've made some great comments about how we manage the system, so I think that's all good.
Certainly. So I have a high level of confidence in our staff and our processes and procedures and controls, and but again, the thing I'll emphasize more is we're going to cooperate fully and completely, and look forward to the interaction and the outcomes.
I don't know if this is related to the audit portion, but I recently read an article implying that OTA receives tax dollars. And I don't know if that's a portion of the audit or if that's going to come up in it, but can you address that and as to the actual facts regarding that implication?
Good question. A little bit of a two-part answer. Again, I don't know how the audit might engage on that aspect of the motor fuel tax that the Turnpike Authority receives. But I would tell you also that there's been a lot of confusion and sometimes misinformation about the motor fuel tax that the Turnpike Authority receives. And I want to talk just for a minute, if I might, about that. So the motor fuel tax that comes to the Turnpike Authority Board, boil it down to the lowest level, is a backstop for our debt service. And the benefit that the Turnpike Authority gets from that is it helps us with our bond rating because we have that backstop. The legislation, and that's statutory, so that is written into law. Once the Turnpike Authority receives those dollars and checks that against the backstop, we send those dollars to the Department of Transportation, who in turn invests them in the tax-supported highway system. The benefit of that is huge. You know, again, the Turnpike Authority gets a benefit from it, and then the Department of Transportation turns right around and puts those resources back on the highway system. Since the inception of that law in the early 1990s, the Turnpike Authority has never used those dollars. We've always transferred them to the tune of $1 billion plus to the Department of Transportation. And again, that's a double benefit to that statute. And but again, Turnpike Authority doesn't. The short answer is no. We do not use tax dollars. We are funded entirely by toll revenues.
Well, it's good to get that straight.
Mr. Director, have you had an opportunity to talk to Attorney General Drummond or his office or the auditor or her office regarding this matter?
Not at this point. You know, we haven't had any formal conversations with the AG or the state auditor. And again, we look forward to engaging with them at a higher level of detail, but at this point, we have not had any formal conversations with them.
Do you have any idea what precipitated this letter and the?
You know, when you look at everything that the Turnpike Authority has got going on, I think, and one of the things that government in general, I think that's important, is the ability to engage scrutiny like this. and not something we shy away from. I believe that, again, when you talk about all of the activity that the Turnpike Authority is involved in, especially in light of our 15-year long-range comprehensive plan and everything related to it, I'm sure that is getting attention and scrutiny, as we know. But having insight directly beyond what the Attorney General has communicated to us and to the state auditor, we don't have much of a level of detail yet.
My last question, any idea what the impact is going to be on our ability to raise funds through the bond market as a result of this?
So that's another one of those multi-part, multifaceted answers. And the short answer is validation, that we're going through right now with the Supreme Court. We always knew that we wanted to pursue validation through that process that the Turnpike Authority customarily uses, and we feel certainly the board feels very strongly, as you exemplified at the June meeting whenever we undertook validation and proceeded with route approval, et cetera. So validation is not complete yet. So we won't obviously move forward into the bond market while that's pending. The other thing is we need to be clear that there are other litigation that's out there also that needs to be resolved, I think, to give us the level of certainty that we're going to need to move into the bond markets. And then again, the investigative audit, I think until we understand what the full scope of it is, it'd be a little bit speculative to try to determine what effect that could have. But from the audit standpoint, the thing I'd reiterate is the high level of confidence that the board has and that I have in the Turnpike Authority's operations and controls, et cetera. So hopefully we can move through that process expeditiously. And again, I think the point of emphasis there is that from the audit perspective and whatever the Attorney General asked for or the auditor asked for, we're going to react quickly to and do everything that we can to help them understand our operations and move through that process as quick as we can.
I know you've made some comments publicly to the media, since the audit, the letter came out. Have you had any other contact with any public officials or anything like that regarding the audit?
Sure, there's concern from the legislature and others, and again, we're attentive to that. But I think at the end of the day, the process that we're going to undertake will hopefully address some of the misunderstandings that are out there, some of the misinformation that's out there, and give us the chance to really show and increase the understanding of the importance of the Turnpike Authority's role in making the transportation system in the state of Oklahoma better and safer for everybody, and really helping the Department of Transportation to address those issues and problems that we can just never assemble the tax-supported resources to address.
Secretary, I have a lot of confidence in our team and the people and the things that we're doing, and I'm not worried per se about the audit or any outcome from any of that. But I worry about the delays, any delays for any reason, just because we've got a lot of work to do to move forward for what the benefit of the state of Oklahoma. In addition, many of the things we're doing, especially the near-term projects, which are going to expand the Turner, which my experience today on the highway said we really badly need, and also adding interchanges, are really important and beneficial for many of the small communities in Oklahoma. And so delays that we have to those projects are going to negatively impact those communities. And so, I guess, is there anything we can do to help move this along, to try to get those projects moving forward? Because I hate to see those communities just sitting there waiting and anticipating with no knowledge of timing or when we can finally move forward.
A couple things that I might point out, and I heard Joe make a reference to flat and straight. Well, our network wants to be flat and straight. But if you travel the Turner Turnpike as an example, there's not much between here and at least that east 17 miles that is flat and straight. It goes up and down a lot. And part of what we're trying to accomplish with this 15-year long-range plan is to make those conditions better. We won't be able to flatten it out completely, but we are going to improve those conditions. We're going to add that capacity, which immediately results in a much safer travel environment. So bear with us. I think as board members, the one thing that I am extremely grateful for is the way that you interact with the people you encounter, whether that's elected officials, whether that's community leaders, and your support for what the Turnpike Authority is trying to accomplish, I think, is as important as anything we do. So what I'd tell you is I'd encourage you to continue to have those dialogues and interactions. I know you do because we talk. And and we're very appreciative of the role that you play and how serious you take the role that you have as board members. So keep that up, and because that is an indication not only of your concern for the traveling public, but an indication of your support for our staff and what we're trying to accomplish. So, Madam, that's what I'd tell you.
Well, in addition to being concerned about making sure we can keep moving forward, because I think a lot of people are depending on us to move forward, I also, we've talked a lot about the accomplishments of our team today, and in particular, I would highlight our accounting team. And one of the concerns I have is some of the comments and media reports that appear to be negatively aimed at our accounting department. And I know we have an outstanding team, and so I'm a little worried about the morale of our team and making sure that they know that we know the outstanding work they do, and help make the public understand what outstanding work they do. And I hope that this audit helps make that better known. But in the meantime, I worry about our team.
And I would agree wholeheartedly. I think when we are doing our day-to-day work, the thing that we can't lose sight of is what we're trying to accomplish. And that's to give Oklahoma the transportation system, whether that's tax-supported or toll-supported, that we're going to need to support Oklahoma for the future. And the importance and criticality of the role that the Turnpike Authority serves in that space. And we do our best to make sure that our staff understands how important they are to helping us accomplish that mission. And the other thing is they're all part of making things better, and really trying to make sure. And we ask a lot of the staff, especially of late, and over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. I can't tell you how many times that I have had to go back to staff and say, just one more thing. And, again, to talk about the quality of the individuals that we work with, they come through 100% of the time. And I think as we look forward, we're going to have a few more one more things in front of us. I fully expect and know that we'll rise to those occasions again. But we are absolutely blessed with the people that I have the honor and privilege to work with, and the folks that work for this board. And their focus is unparalleled. And again, they can accomplish anything. I know they can. Talk just a minute about the communities that are awaiting some of these improvements that are on the radar. It's going to be extremely important that we continue to communicate timeframes and other to the extent that we can with those communities, because again, too often what we're trying to accomplish is to create not only a safer Turnpike network and reinvest back into the network, but take care of some things that, we talk about interchange locations and what that brings to the communities that were just to put it in no uncertain terms, they were flat bypassed when the Turnpike, for reasons that were important at the time. But investing in plate pay and investing in cashless tolling are going to give us opportunities that we can go in and really make a difference across the network. And again, we're going to continue to do our best to communicate with those communities to the extent we can and provide timelines. But the thing I'd emphasize to the board is there's a lot of uncertainty. We're certainly not on the same timeline we originally anticipated, but we will try to provide information back to not just the board, but those communities out there as we have better information in front of us and a better understanding.
Well,
And
you
let us know
mentioned-
too, because I get calls from them.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned, Dana did too, obviously we're waiting on a lot of things, but one of the things is the audit. Do we have any idea about when it might commence, how long it might take, and when it might end?
Mr. Jones, at this point, no. You know, an audit is initiated with the first engagement that we get from the state auditor. That's yet to happen. You know, it could take months, it could take a year more. So there are a lot of factors and uncertainty around what the exact scope will be. You know, the thing I come back to every time is we are cooperative and ready, and again, look forward to working with the state auditor in whatever capacity that she might need. But at the end of the day, an audit like we're going to undertake, you know, the short answer is an audit's complete when an audit's complete. And it'll take time to prepare the report. And I know that the state auditor is thorough in the work that she does. And again, so she'll put together a good comprehensive report, and it'll take whatever time it takes. And we'll do our best to interact with her and provide her staff with whatever they need to complete their work.
Well, needless to say, you obviously have all of our support, and I have all the utmost confidence in how we're going to look and appear when this is finished. And I think it's going to be, you know, 2 thumbs up, and we've done everything the correct way.
I would like to interject to piggyback what John and Dana said about having the utmost confidence in the way Julie presented her audit the other day and as well today, and 32nd year in a row that we get the certificate. But when they do come in here, are we prepared, or how does this affect our daily operations? Because based off of the amount of effort that Julie and her team put forth and everybody else, you know, how does that pull them away from their daily activities to go? I mean, I guess in the other part of this question would be, is there anything that the board can do to help with that?
For all practical purposes, it won't directly affect our daily operations, but it will cause our staff to have to step up again with those one more things. And I know that they'll do that. And it won't just be our financial side. I'm certain that there will be a lot of procedures that are looked at and a lot of internal control that are looked at that lie outside the financial areas. So all of the staff potentially gets engaged in some of these conversations. And I think everybody's got to be ready to step up and be responsive. And the meetings I've had with leadership, our team's prepared for that. And again, they will get that one more thing done, and I have nothing but confidence in them. From the board's perspective, at this point, I don't even know what to ask you for, but that time may come, and I will not hesitate to make a call either in a regular meeting or a special meeting if there are going to be assistance required that we need help from the governance body. So
And we won't hesitate to respond.
I have full confidence in that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
This is not a question, this is more of a statement. Access Oklahoma was much bigger. It covered all of Oklahoma. And I know from my neck of the woods, I've got people that were really excited about expanding the Gilcrease up to the north, expanding the Turnpike to make it safer, get the whole thing lit in 6 lanes, and the Will Rogers Turnpike. The frustration is the pending litigation down in Cleveland County, the threat of an audit, that delaying all the things that the people of Oklahoma, at least in my neck of the woods, are really, really looking forward to getting after and getting done. And so, thank you for your working on this, and obviously, if you want to just focus on the Turner, the Kilpatrick, and Will Rogers, that'd be great.
Mr. Cohn, you bring up a really good point, and I think all of the things that we put in this comprehensive long-range plan, and again, how do you raise the standard of communication of the needs that we have out there on the system? You do it in a long-range format. You have to, because we can't make these projects happen in a narrow window of time. So we've done our best with the support of the board to project that window even further into the future, because that's our job. We've got to try to identify problems that we see developing and put the improvements in place that are going to be necessary to support that. And again, I think that's really what Access is all about. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. And those projects are going to move forward in time. But I think the uncertainty, again, is there now, and we're going to have to work through this. But the thing I can assure you of is we'll do our best and try to find our way forward to the best of our ability.
If we don't look at them now, what's it going to look like 15 years from now?
Well, and again, that's our job. We've got to do what we can to try to predict the future. These are not improvements that weren't long recognized, and the needs that are predicating these improvements will not heal themselves. They're only going to grow. And I think we've got to do our best to anticipate that, provide a long-range plan to address those conditions and those situations that we see out there every day, and then implement it to the best of our ability with welcoming of public scrutiny, because I think that's part of it too. And I'm grateful for that. I think we have to be good at responding to the questions that we get, and we work on that every day.
Well, and two, we as great as I think we are, and you made the statement, we welcome the audit because it's another set of eyes that aren't ours. And you know what, the possibility, I'm a glass full guy, the possibility exists that, out of this, something makes us even better.
Yeah.
So I think the opportunity that is there for that to happen potentially, and we should certainly welcome that, and I know that we will. And as Gene just said, our transportation needs are ever-changing.
Yep, and I fully expect we will get recommendations coming out of this for some things that we can improve on.
Sure.
And as we receive those recommendations, we'll bring those back for consideration. And but again, this is this undertaking is not something that we run away from. It's an opportunity for us to address concerns that the public has, that the Attorney General has, and become a better organization and increase the understanding of the Turnpike Authority's role out there for all Oklahomans. Because that's really, at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is represent the Oklahomans that we serve and provide them with a safer network that provides more opportunity for the future. And we don't ever want to lose sight of why we're doing this. It's not for the sake of building turnpikes. It's trying to give Oklahoma the transportation system that we're going to need, not just today, but for the future.
And that can't be serviced just by ODOT.
It cannot be. The Department of Transportation does absolutely everything they can to take care of the 12,300-mile system on the tax-supported highways that we've got. And it takes everything that they've got just to keep it in good operating condition and, try to manage what they can manage.
We're continuously looking for opportunities to get better, and having another set of eyes can do that, but and provide some benefit. But I also feel like I'm hoping that one of the outcomes of this is the public's greater awareness of just what a good job we do, because I think we have quietly been doing what the state of Oklahoma needs us to do, but most people don't realize that. So that's my hope.
I agree.
Yeah, second.
Any other questions or comments? Again, Secretary Gatz, thanks for what you do. I think, I haven't said this in a while, but at some of our outside meetings and that sort of thing, our get-togethers, I've said, I think you have the greatest staff in state government. I mean, without question, in my mind, and I think everybody else feels the same way. So, thank you very much.
Not that we're biased.
Not that we're biased. Of course we're
If you need to
biased.
add ODOT employees to
So,
that, you can.
beg your pardon?
If he needs to add more ODOT employees to that, you can.
Yeah. We need to steal a few more good ones. So, anyway, thanks
Thank
very
you, Mr.
much.
Chairman.
That is the last item on our agenda for today. Thank everybody for coming. Thanks for your patience and a little longer meeting. If there's nothing else to come before the board, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. Jenny, please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Mr. Lowe?
Yes. We're now adjourned to our next meeting scheduled for Tuesday, May the 2nd, 2023 at 10:30 a.m.